Guys, it's Fonzie with DipYourCar.com. This is the Dipping Industry DYC DipCast podcast, episode number 12. It's Fonzie. Of course, with me always is Adam, our sound engineer over there, Dan, and we've got a different type of an episode for you guys today. We want to throw in some different formats every once in a while to switch it up. So this time we're not going to go with a guest, and on this episode, correct me if I'm wrong, we are just doing an entire episode of rapid fire customer and fan questions.
Right. We've been getting so many good ones, and we felt like, even though we were sending out emails, we felt like a lot of our questions that were being brought to our attention needed time on the DipCast. So we figured let's devote an entire episode to those questions.
Right. So basically what was happening is we've been building this bank of questions and trying to get 2 or 3 of them into every episode at the end. And we realized that we were just completely caught. We're behind. Mm-hmm. So what we want to do is one Q&A madness episode every once in a while. And that way we can catch up, clear the question bank, and then reset so that we don't have all these questions. If not, we'll have dozens and dozens of questions just get never answered.
Right. So exactly.
Start firing them off.
All right.
And like always with Q&A, we kept to that truth where I'm not familiar with what the questions are going to be, just so we can get normal, natural responses, have them conversational, so they're not just
generic.
Well, yeah, just not premeditated.
Right. All right. Well, Guillermo wanted to know, why haven't all gallons switched to the PDS formula? Some have, the majority have, but some are still RDS.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to go and find out so we can reference which ones have.
Right, because he actually had a follow-up question about which ones are PDS and which ones aren't, and that actually can be seen on the website. It is listed under the gallons.
Right. And what do we have listed? We have the ones that have
gone to the PDS form, yeah.
Okay. The ones that you should know this by heart, by the way. I bet you know the majority.
I know the majority of them, yeah.
Yeah. Currently transitioned to new PDS: anthracite, black, black and blue, black cherry, blurple, camel green, flex blue, gunmetal gray, intense teal, koi orange, light blue, matte clear, red, and white. So basically that means any of those colors, and this is listed at DipYourCar.com. If you order any of those colors, you're getting the new and improved Plasti Dip spray formula versus the older rubber dip spray formula. So a little bit of a smoother finish, a little bit of a slicker feel, and better pigment coverage on most colors. The reason why all of them haven't switched over yet is because it's a rolling change. And any normal time, depending on the color, Dip Your Car in our warehouse will have anywhere between 350 to 1,500 gallons of a single color in stock. For the regular colors, black, white, clear, glossifier, 3,000 to 4,000 gallons in stock. So when a rolling change comes and all of a sudden, boom, on day one, the gallons that are sent to us are now this different formula. Well, we have to run through 300, 400, 500, 600 gallons or whatever is currently in stock of that color before the transition is made. And some of those colors don't have a lot of turnover.
Right.
Monster green, fire belly orange, obviously hot pink, purple. Some of these colors, especially the fluorescent colors, ever since the full spectrum came out. Well, full spectrum is out, so now you can get bright, bold colors without the white base coat, without the fading issues that some of the fluorescence ones have. Colors like that are not quick turnover, so that's why it takes a little time to cycle out the old and then replace it with the new.
Right. Okay. Dan wanted to know that when you order the DYC spray system, you get that 48-ounce cup, but the extra paint cups are 32 ounces. How can he go about getting 48-ounce cups as replacement?
We don't carry extra 48-ounce cups. We do carry extra 48-ounce cups. It depends on how many are stocked right now, and I think that again might just go back to that last question. Depending on how many of the extra 32 we had in stock, we may just be clearing out the 32. But that's an interesting question, because I was under the impression that all of the extra paint cups we were sending out right now were 48. But I have to look into that. We obviously had a stock of 32 left.
Right.
So we're going to get into that, and we'll put it up on the next episode or whatever. But yeah, we got to look into that. So I'm glad he asked that question.
All right. Steve wanted to know, we recently came out with the dip release for using on your tires to peel off that excess overspray.
Mhm.
Can you use the dip release on surface areas other than your tires that you don't want the dip to adhere to?
Yeah, I mean, well, yes, but be careful with it because it's kind of a messy product. It's not a super tactical or surgical product. It kind of gets in places you don't want it to get to. So let me give you an example of something you probably don't want to use it for. If you wanted to coat your emblems in dip release, spray your whole car covering the emblems, and then pull, the dip release off the emblems. An example of why you would want to do that, and that people have asked me this before, changing the color of your emblems while your whole car is dipped. So you have your entire car dipped red, and you want, your emblems dipped black. How do you do that? Well,
Mm-hmm.
outside of painstaking masking, it's not a lot of ways. So people are like, oh, well, can I just dip them red or dip them black, put dip release on it, and then dip the whole car black, and then easily peel the new dip off the old? And it's just not that crisp. Is it possible? Probably, but I wouldn't suggest it. I think
Right.
it's going to create some wavy lines and some. It's going to take away the sharpness of
Mm-hmm.
the dip around the emblem. So, but for other things, I mean, you can put it on just about anything that you don't want the dip to adhere to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't have any other applications that I personally use dip release for other than when we dip wheels
Mm-hmm.
and we use it around the tire to make it fly off the tire real quick. But you can get creative with it for sure.
Right. All right. John wanted to know what happens when you mix two different color changing pearls together.
I don't know. It depends on what color changing pearls you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
There is no answer to that question. I think the question could be reworded as, can you mix two color changing pearls together? And yes, you can. But every single time you mix pearl A and B together versus pearl A and C, A and D, they're going to be giving you a different effect.
Right.
And then depending on the ratio and the dominance of each color, those are going to give you a different effect. If you do bluegill and flash 50-50, that's going to look completely different than if you did 25% bluegill, 75% flash, or vice versa.
Right.
And actually, one thing that we've been doing a lot of is layering instead of mixing, because it kind of affects when you mix color changing pearls together. It kind of affects that pearl's ability to use those prisms and actually change the color depending on how
Right.
the light hits it. But what we've been working with is layering different color changing pearls. So, and actually, I've seen a bunch of people do this. They seem to like to use the alien pearl, different alien pearls on top of some of the existing color changing pearls. So you'll do, example, bluegill down on the car, solid coverage of bluegill, and then a couple light coats of GC47 on top.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we've been doing the layering for a long time. I know a lot of people have as well. And that's something I would definitely suggest doing. And I think the video we're doing tomorrow is probably going to be one of the more complex videos we've ever done. And you'll understand why. We are going to be working microflakes into the mix.
Oh, cool.
So that's going to be very interesting.
Mm.
Obviously, with the new top coat,
Right.
microflakes are all sorts of good. So,
Right.
Going back to the original question, I have no idea.
All right. Nathan wanted to know why doesn't, a lot of people call and say, hey, how much would it take to dip my car? And we'll have to kind of get into specifics with them. Okay, year, make, model. And then they'll say, well, no, I want you guys to do it. And then we'll have to say, well, we have authorized installers that do it. Or if you want to do it yourself, you can purchase product from us. But then people say, well, you guys actually don't do it. And we have to explain to them that no, DYC actually don't do customer cars anymore. Why don't we do customer cars any longer?
Well, we started Dip Your Car in 2011, and then in 2012 we opened up the first Dip Your Car retail center, and that's where it is now in Coral Springs. And that was a retail and installation center.
Right.
We did installations, multiple installations a week. I mean, there was a very long period of time where we did at least 1 or 2 installations a day, depending on if it was a whole car. And what happened was that was in the beginning when the installation business was really good for us, but then the distribution through the websites was starting to grow and really starting to boom. And there was a point where I was doing the installations, and then I hired a guy to come in and do the installations, but I was still checking them, neurotically checking them. And then it got to a point where I was just doing the numbers and doing the books with the accounting team. And I looked down and was like, you know what? We don't have to do installations anymore from a revenue point of view. And I can't keep doing both.
Mm-hmm.
I was spending so much time on the installs, and there was so much more demand of my time to run the distribution side of the business. I had to sit back and pick one or the other. I love doing the installations because the profit margin on that is so strong if you're doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a legitimate business and you're taking your time, materials, energy all into account, the profit margin should be very strong for you. And I loved that. I loved that part of the business. I loved putting my hands on cars and churning and burning and that type of thing. I liked that, getting my hands dirty. But then the other side of the business just got to be so much. I had to make a choice, and we chose to focus on and grow the distribution side. But a follow up to that, I guarantee you the majority of people listening to this have no idea how many people call the corporate office, call the retail store, or walk into the retail store on a daily basis, or email us thinking that we do installs
Oh
and
yeah,
asking
absolutely.
how many times a day. You're in customer service. How
All
many
the
times
time.
a day?
All the time.
And you have to tell these people, we don't do installations here. And that's where being an authorized
Right.
DipYourCar installer comes into play, over and above the social media, over and above the online listing on the website. We find the only thing you can tell these people is, where are you located?
Right.
Let me give you a couple suggestions to some authorized installers that are closest to you. And we do that 10, 12, 15 times a day.
Right. And that's, to be honest, the major benefit of becoming an authorized installer is you are going to get those recommendations from us all the time.
Well, because we're not going to just tell the people we don't do it and then, all right, see ya. I mean, we're going to put them in front of somebody, or at least send them down the direction where they can find somebody to get it done in their area.
Right. I mean, I had a guy who called today from New York saying, he wanted his car dipped. Where are you guys located? I said, Florida. He's like, all right, well, I'll get my car down to you guys. And I was like, well, no, we don't do the installations. Here, let's go to the authorized installer link on the website. Let me run through the locations, who's closest to you. Here's their Facebook information. Here are their websites.
Right.
You can go ahead and do your research and kind of, contact them yourself.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, that's a great way for these guys to get involved with our customers.
Mm-hmm.
Next question is, Jeremy wants to know, are there any plans to release any new pearls or pearls within our current series of pearls?
Yeah. We're always testing and looking at new pearls all the time. I think one of the reasons why we are holding back on releasing new pearls right now is, and I've said this in one of the other DipCasts, is that the DYC Dip Pearl Top Coat is going to make all of our current pearls look completely different.
Right.
And a really good example of that is London from Dip Hawaii's Plasma Truck. If you look at London from Dip Hawaii's Plasma Truck versus a couple of the other projects that were posted on Facebook groups and stuff that utilize the Plasma Dip Pearl, they look very different.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously because of the clarity and the gloss, the boldness, the opacity, the color. They look totally different.
Right.
We were I was at the retail shop the other day, and Gabe threw a couple speed shapes in front of me. He's like, yo, check these out. I'm like, what are these? Are these new? And he's like, no, man, that's Radiant Red. That's Iguana Green. I was like, Jesus, there's so much more depth, so much more sparkle. It got to the point where we went through candy pearls, and then like solid pearls, and then we went to chameleon pearls. And once we got into the chameleon pearls and the color flips, it almost made it like the solid color candy pearls were boring and old, and nobody wanted to touch them. Now, some of the sickest jobs that we've done are with solid color pearls.
Right.
The orange and the yellow and what I can't keep track.
But mocha brown.
Even mocha brown.
People went nuts over that calling.
Because this new top coat makes that much of a difference when you're using these standard pearls. And I think you're going to see people doing all sorts of stuff. They're going to be bringing flakes in, using pearls at high pigment loads, low pigment loads, over color matching base coats, contrasting base coats, ghosting the pearls over white. And you're going to see a very, very big impact when you're going to be going from the old version of the 50/50 to the DYC top coat.
Right. And you actually, and we've touched base on this, I think, last week, but you actually, on your Instagram account, put up a side-by-side speed shape comparison of 50/50 versus the Dip Pearl top coat.
We've covered that multiple times.
Right.
Now.
Right. Next question is, can you mix, Moses wants to know, can you mix color-changing pearls in with colored PDS gallons? And of course, the answer is yes, you can, but what effect is that going to have?
What? Colored what?
Like color changing chameleon alien pearls into colored PDS gallons, or
depending on what color you use and how much pearl you use, you're going to see either a very muted, almost indistinguishable effect, or you're going to see a pretty darn cool effect. I mean, and that really depends on first of all, the color of PDS that you use. Something like Hunter Green has a very submissive pigment load, if you will. So it can be overtaken very easily. It does not have very strong coverage. If you drop, I don't know, what would be a good one for that? For Hunter Green, I mean, Bluegill would be good. Zombie would be good. I mean, almost anything that would work with the green. But if you throw, 50 grams of that into a Hunter Green gallon, you're probably still going to achieve some type of a color shifting pattern to it. If you drop that same amount into black or gunmetal, those colors are stronger. They're going to eat it up a little bit more.
Right.
But even that guy Chris from up in Jersey was doing from Dip One I think it was Nordic or GC47 within black PDS.
Right.
And that looked really cool, man.
Yeah.
It had that galaxy kind of effect to it where it looked very cool. I mean, I really encourage people to start dropping pearls directly into PDS, especially if you're a beginner, because it's so easy to use and it has that OEM kind of feel to it. We've been doing a lot of testing where we've been putting pearls into PDS instead of on top of it, and then clearing with the DYC Dip Pearl top coat over that. And that has been some of the most OEM looking pearls that we've ever done.
Right.
Or jobs that we've ever done.
Right. And that's actually a recommendation we often give out to people, first timers. Since the pearls came around, a lot of people just think that it's their first time dipping a car, they have to use pearls or they want to use pearls. And so oftentimes I'll recommend to them on the phone, just mix them in. Yeah, it's not going to be the same color as the pearl actually would be. It's going to be, obviously it's a blend, but it's going to be easier to work with, and you're going to have something so different than anybody else has done.
Yeah, and one thing that you should definitely start suggesting, and I've been doing this a lot too, is for the beginners or people that are using a solid color pearl and are a little bit wary about it. What you can do is you can take, let's say, Saturn Yellow. Instead of mixing 50 grams of Saturn Yellow into a yellow gallon of PDS, take a gallon of yellow PDS, you take a gallon of, say, the Dip Pearl top coat, 50 grams of Saturn Yellow Pearl into the gallon of Dip Pearl top coat, and then mix those together for your top coat. So what that's going to do is it's going to really dilute the pigment that's in the PDS, but that pigment, what's left, is going to add some foundation and almost like a security blanket to those coats that are going on. Very, very easy to apply, but you get a lot of the pearl effect. You get some of that satin effect finish from the Dip Pearl top coat, and then you get the security and the ease of use of having the PDS in there.
Perfect. Next question is from Scott. He wants to know, and we'll get this every once in a while, is I'm spraying my first coat. It turns out great. It's a nice light tack coat. I'm spraying my second coat. I'm building up coverage. My third, my fourth coat. And all of a sudden on my fourth coat, I start to see some texturing. Is there any way to go about fixing that texturing without having to peel a panel and start from scratch?
Man. I've seen people spraying naphtha or xylene over textured dip and expecting it to settle and smooth out. I've seen people use paint rollers with thinner and going over that. It really depends on what your definition of texture is. If you have a very shallow, open orange peel where it's just kind of like, it's just kind of like waves, you could try giving the car a thinner bath, but so a lot of times when you do something like that, you're going to make more of a mess than help. if you're going to go through through the trouble of filling the gun up with thinner, shooting the whole car with thinner, letting it sit, doing that 2 or 3 times, um, you're almost better off just peeling and starting over
Right.
on that part. The only time I would suggest doing something like that or trying it as a last resort is if you're just out of product.
Right.
You do your whole car, you're out of black or whatever you've been using, and you look at it and you're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
ran into some trouble there. If you have thinner laying around, I mean, it's something you can try to do. But my guidance or my suggestion for everybody who's in that situation is always the same. You can't really get away from texture. Once you got it, you got it.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you spray on top of it, the more you're going to build on top of
Right.
it. It's not going to mask it. There are some advanced people out there that I'm sure have used thinners and things like that and gotten some results, especially small scale. If you're doing it on your wheels or something, rub some thinner on, whatever it is, really, kind of bring that down and then spray over it. But on an entire car, when you're looking for continuity on the entire thing, on these large open panels where you really want them to be like 100% smooth and even, I would just peel and start again.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean that's something that you'll see on the Facebook community page a lot is, oh, a naphtha bath, or the forum, a naphtha bath, spray it with some thinner.
Yeah.
And when people talk to me on the phone about it, or I know Christina or Brad, will actually mention it, but say, it's not something we really recommend because, like you said, it's tough to undo something. It's better if you have product, and it's
Yeah.
especially if it's a small area. That's the purpose of this product, is that it's peelable. You can remove it and then start that area again.
Yeah, if you, I mean, I don't know, if you want to go down the route of coating your entire car in naphtha, I mean, just you got to be really careful.
Right.
But
Right.
just to go back to it, there's a lot of ways to do everything. But if you're asking any DipYourCar employee for guidance on, hey man, I did this and my hood's got a ton of texture on it. What can I do to bring that down? You can just respray it
Right.
without texture.
Right. Marshall wants to know who preps our cars here at DYC.
I think the majority of the listeners of this already know. I think they know that Gabe, the retail manager, preps our cars.
Mm-hmm.
We'll pick one of the shop cars. All of our videos are usually planned out 2 weeks ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
So we will drop the car off the day before. Car gets washed, bring it into the shop, doors open, everything, let it completely dry. And then he comes in that morning, and between running the retail store and when people aren't in, he will prep the car. And usually about 4, 5, 6 o'clock, whenever it is, we'll start shooting the video and spraying the car.
Sean wants to know, how can he use dip wash to clean his dip surface if he doesn't have a power washer to connect the dip foam system to?
You don't need the dip foam system to use dip wash. Dip wash is just a car wash concentrate that we've just kind of tweaked to make sure it works really well for dip.
Mm-hmm.
Because, a lot of car washes work good for dip. Some of them don't. And obviously people want to know, hey, what's a really inexpensive one that I can buy that will definitely work? And, we've used something that we had made for us for a long time. So we just mass produced it and we just shared it with everyone because we knew it worked really well. You can use dip wash in a bucket with a dip washer or like a really soft microfiber if you want to, especially if they have dip coat on the car already. It'll just slide around real easy. But
Mm-hmm.
And you can't use the dip foam system without a power washer.
Right.
But dip wash, there's no secret to that. I mean, drop it in a bucket, fill it up with water.
Chris wants to know, what is the shelf life of an unopened or resealed gallon of, PDS?
Yeah, that's kind of undetermined. Based on what we've seen in our own experience, because we've got, in that shop, we've got open gallons for going on 3 something years now. It's just an indefinite shelf life. Just you have to keep it closed.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have it closed and sealed, thinners are going to escape and evaporate, and it's going to change the compounds or at least the ratios of what's in there, and then it's not going to work the same. But we've got sometimes when we're doing weird testing for a whole bunch of different stuff. I mean, you can imagine how much testing we do. Everyone's constantly sending us waxes and sealants and washes and all these different products. Oh, this works over dip. We want you to private label it. We want you to work with it. We test everything that's sent to us. coatings and gloss coat, top coats and all this crazy stuff. So a lot of times we have to just drop down 3, 4, 5 layers of dip on a hood to do the testing with.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been pulling gallons that we always cycle through them because why waste them?
Right.
I remember the other day when we were testing some kind of an interesting, I don't know, it was a gloss top coat that somebody sent in from Europe, and we needed 5 coats on down on a base. We grabbed a gallon of light blue
Mm-hmm.
that we had self-thinned in 2012 before RDS came out, and we looked at it, and it was just like this two-tone gallon. It was just clear, thinner at the top, completely separated from the blue full-strength RDS on the bottom. And I looked at Gabe, I'm like, dude, just blend it, see what happens. Blended it up. Some of it was kind of clumpy at the bottom, but blended it up and sprayed it, and the coverage wasn't great, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
because it was self-thinned, but it worked, sprayed, and peeled exactly the same.
Cool. Then probably one of our last questions is Shane wants to know that, and this is a good question for a lot of our newcomers, is they'll ask, things about really old videos. And, we're talking 2.5, 3 years ago. He mentioned that in older videos, he noticed that we didn't mask off like windshields, headlights, and things like that. We just spray over the entire car, peel it,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of, he wanted to know what changed. Why are now we masking parts of the vehicle instead of just spraying the whole thing and peeling?
Yeah, I think a lot of our long-term followers and fans and customers and friends are very familiar with that. We started doing that in the beginning, spraying right over windows, right over taillights, headlights, because it was the easiest thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we realized, okay, we're doing 2 videos a week, 3 videos a week, we're spraying multiple cars a week through testing and everything. If we do 2 cars a week for a video for every single week of the year, that's you're spraying extra product on all the taillights, headlights, windows,
Right.
especially enough of it, 4 or 5 coats to make it peelable. We're saving considerable amount of product throughout the year by not spraying those.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the roof. We've done the roof before in the vintage Gold A4 video and a couple others, but if we're just churning and burning cars to show you, the purpose of the video is to show you what this color looks like. We're not going to do the roof every time, because if we do 110 cars a year and we don't do the roof on all of them, again, that adds up to a pallet of gallons or whatever it comes out to. So from a savings point of view and an ease of use point of view, we don't spray those areas. But not only on top of that, once we started to learn and experience a little bit more about headlights and taillights and how specific and kind of delicate those can be, some headlights and taillights, some of those lenses, they don't react to dip very well. Those solvents go on there, and it doesn't do very well. Some of them rarely can cloud out a little bit or get a little etching in there. So from a liability point of view and just one of those safety nets, we've just started suggesting to everybody years ago to mask all those off.
And people actually say that, like, oh, you know what? I think I just want to, it'll be easier to just spray and peel. And I say, well, then the product recommendation we gave you, you're going to have to add at least another gallon onto that, because
if
like
it's a sedan, there's 4 windows and whatever else you're going to spray over. I mean, the taillights and headlights, you're not adding a lot of product for that. You're passing over it most of the time anyway with the tape. But the windows, it's essentially one more full panel if you put all the windows together.
Right.
So it's easier too. Mask it off, you're going to get cleaner lines. A lot of times, depending on the way that the windows and the trim and everything is built, sometimes you don't have the option to just spray right over that and peel it, because then you're going to leave dip on some of the rubber trim that you don't want to leave it on.
Right. And it popped into my head when I was kind of posing this question to you, is if you're a newcomer, watch more of the recent videos. Now, obviously, if you aren't using pearls or something like that, you're going to go back to one of the, the regular sprayable gallons and not the pearl mixture videos. But if you're using a pearl and you want the most up-to-date information, obviously watch those older videos, but watch the newer videos, because things are always changing.
Yeah.
We're reinventing the wheel, per se, a lot.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it kills me because our most watched video would be that first dip a whole car video in my driveway, black S4, using bed sheets and newspapers masking I did have shoes on in that one though, which is a big step up. And that video's got like 6 million views. And I just hope that the people that watch that dig in a little bit deeper. Yeah, I'll see a comment on there once in a while. Oh, this is so inefficient. This is so unprofessional. What are you doing out there? Is that how things go? I'm like, dude, that's like that's 3 years ago, man.
Right.
Like that is not accurate.
Right.
So, it is what it is.
All right, and I think that's done with our questions. I know that you were kind of excited in the office because you kind of wanted to make a little announcement tonight.
I could make an announcement tonight.
I think some people are going to be kind of pumped up about this.
Are you pumped up about it?
I mean,
you seem pretty pumped up.
I mean,
it's basically what's going on is the DYC Dip Pro Top Coat gallons were scheduled to start shipping on March 16th.
Mm-hmm.
And based on some current updates, I'm going to move that date up by a week. And that is going to put that ship date on essentially, the 9th?
That's what we were looking at the calendar. That's what it looked like, yeah.
Where's this calendar at?
Probably back.
Because I know I'm going to get 15,000 PMs
right
after this. We were claiming on we were going to start shipping on the 16th, which is a Monday.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to give it, I'm going to pull it back or forward a full week. And we're going to say that we're going to start shipping pre-orders on the 9th.
See, I mean, no, that's why I was excited. I think that's exciting news.
It is very exciting. And it actually is going to make probably a big impact for a lot of people, especially the businesses that have scheduled appointments that are really kind of building up ahead of this based on the gloss. I know that a lot of people keep asking me, well, dude, I got to schedule appointments. I got people coming in that want this done. When is it coming? I can't tell you exactly what day it's going to drop, but I can tell you that our plan right now is to start shipping the pre-orders on Monday, March 9th.
And I like that you said the pre-orders because I have a lot of people that still call and say, oh, what's up with that new gloss? And they want to start their car, March 23rd, but I'm not going to order today. I'm not going to put in a pre-order today. I'll call back in a couple of weeks or, a couple of days. And ultimately it's their call, but I hang up the phone and I'm like, and I'll make them aware of this. If you don't pre-order it, not that, we're going to run out of stock or anything like that, but you never know. I mean, there are people putting in massive orders.
Dude, there are over 2,500 gallons pre-ordered right now.
Right.
And I told everybody from the beginning, when we put this thing up for pre-order, I told everybody, it even said it on the piece. The product is coming in waves.
Right.
And the supply may be limited. If the first truckload, because you can only get so many gallons on a truck.
Right.
If the first truckload is not 2,500 plus gallons, the people who pre-ordered are looking pretty intelligent right now.
Right.
We'll see what happens.
Right.
I'm not saying that we're going to be in like a back ordered for week situation.
Right.
Because I know that the product's going to keep coming. But if truckloads are 4 or 5 days apart, 8 days apart, whatever it is, like I said, those people who pre-ordered ahead of time that really do care when they get it made the right move.
Right.
So this was a pretty easy yet interesting episode because we covered a lot of things that we wanted to cover for a long time. It was kind of that like rapid fire, different topic. And like I said, we're going to try and change up the format every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those things, one of those Q&A madness episodes where we just kind of pop them off and move on. Next week we should go back to the original. I will tell you that your cheeseburger sweatshirt did ship today.
All right.
I don't know where it shipped from because, of course, USPS is incredibly dependable, and the tracking number is giving me an error. So,
and you know how often they update that.
It's literally the worst way to ship anything is USPS. Like that's what you send it through if you don't want it to get there.
Right.
But you can say you sent it, but you don't want it to get there. Just send it through USPS. But other than that, I think we're going to be good to go. It's going to be a very exciting week next week. And keep your eyes open for the video that we do tonight because I promise you it's going to be different than what we've done before, especially with those microflakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should see what happens. Dan, you want to give him something? A little something.
Oh,
Hey, waves this
wait.
time. That was not authorized. I'm going to have to edit that out. All right, guys. We'll see you next episode.